soon. I'm sure the principal is allowed to be late every once in a while.
Can you believe she got 2 PhDs?
Is there something wrong with that?
I mean, you talk about overachieving and all that.
You're a football coach, right? So if your football team wins 2 state championships in a row, would you call that overachieving?
You know what this is?
A show of pride in her accomplishments?
No. It's her attempt to prove that she's better than a man. It's like she has all this to show us how smart she is, and she's late.
At which school did you work, Mr. Douglas?
Coach Douglas.
Coach Douglas. We haven't properly introduced ourselves. Missy Cottonfield. Missy is fine. Is that how you prefer I address you, Coach Douglas?
No. Butch is fine.
Butch. I'm sorry, I thought your name was Francis.
Well, I don't go by that name anymore.
Oh?
I decided I wanted a better name, a stronger name. So I chose Butch.
Butch. Yes, I can see how it has some gravitas.
And if any of the other kids called me by the old name, I'd just beat them up. They learn pretty quick not to mess with me.
Okay. I guess that's one way to handle it.
Well, it's the only way. If you want to get respect.
Well, I actually see it differently.
How so?
Well, I believe that violence is nothing but destroy. It destroys the victim and the perpetrator by taking a little piece of their soul each time an act of violence is committed. Just a little piece at a time until there's no soul left. Just one act can change a person forever. Well, I think Francis is a very distinguished name. You should be proud of it. Is it a family name?
Yeah, it's a family name. It's a pussy name. And as far as I'm concerned, it ended with my father. Westmont High. Across town.
I'm sorry.
You asked me where I coach.
Oh, right. Westmont. That's a good school.
It's the best school. I mean, if the district didn't have this dumb rule that children of employees couldn't be with their parents, AJ would be with me at Westmont.
I defended a parent from Westmont about 6 or 7 years ago in court when the school board issued a suit against her.
You defended that crazy chick. I mean, the one that was handing out all those, I don't even know what you call them.
She was handing out allies of the LGBTQ community pamphlets in the school's courtyard. Yes, it's considered a public space, and she had the right to the freedom of speech.
Okay. No, I understand.
What many people don't realize is that
I don't
her
really
rights actually...
care. I mean, really, I don't. We're not friends, and we're not here to socialize. Our kids got in a fight, and we're settling the shit with the principal.
It really wasn't a fight.
Okay. If it wasn't a fight, then what do you call it?
It was an ambush.
You can't have an ambush with one person.
Of course you can.
No, you can't. Just forget about it. Just forget it. I don't want to talk about it.
Trevor told me that your son walked up to him.
I know it happened. So I don't need you to give me the play-by-play. Bottom line, 2 kids got in a fight. One learned his lesson, and that's all there is to it.
One learned his lesson? And which one would that be? Your son assaulted my son.
AJ assaulted your son.
This campus, this entire campus, including this office, is supposed to be a safe space.
Safe space. That's a crime. No such thing.
No. Not when kids like your son decide they're gonna
Don't talk about my son. Understand? AJ's a good boy, and he doesn't go through. Look, I'm just saying, you need to have a long talk with your son.
Are you trying to tell me how to parent?
Apparently someone has to. Why isn't she here? It's just unprofessional.
They say that we're gonna have a mild winter this year, but I'm not so sure. Last year it seemed like it was gonna...
What are you doing? I mean, just talking. Why do you feel the need to talk or just keep talking?
I was only saying that the forecast...
And I don't give a shit. So let's just sit down and wait for Dr. Kilpatrick to get here. Can you do that for me?
Figured we could at least be civil with one another. We are adults, after all. There's nothing wrong with being friendly.
Friendly? You didn't listen to what I just said. We're not friends. We're on opposite sides of the field. There's not any friends here.
I didn't have any friends in junior high and high school. I was always the favorite target of the bullies, both boys and girls, and they were relentless. Fat little Missy rolling down a hill, she can't get up, she probably never will. I never fit in with any group. Certainly wasn't a cheerleader, I wasn't an athlete. I was smart, but I wasn't one of the geniuses. If they weren't calling me Fat Missy, they were calling me Weird Missy or Freakazoid. I have to admit I was a strange child. I had a weird sense of humor. The worst day had to be that day in 9th grade after phys ed class. I was the last one out of the shower, as usual, and all of my clothes were in the trash can, covered in all sorts of shit. 4 or 5 of the football players and their cheerleader girlfriends were hiding in the locker room, and they started laughing and teasing. And then these girls started hitting me with these socks that had those small oranges in them. Those mandarin oranges. It hurt like hell. After they got a few hits in, they took off running. I don't think any of them were caught. I didn't have my glasses on, so I couldn't see who they were, but I recognized some of their voices. But there was no way to prove it was them, so ultimately, no justice was delivered. The phys ed instructor told me to try not to be the last one in the locker room next time.
So you see this as some sort of bad thing that happened to you, right? Well, I see it as a learning opportunity.
Excuse me?
Just think about it. They beat you up because you were weird. I mean, you said it yourself, you were weird. And you still are, which means you didn't learn the lesson.
And what, in your mind, was the lesson?
Stop being weird. I mean, just be like everyone else. Be a normal person. They weren't bad kids. They were just trying to set you straight. That's all. I mean, no one gets hurt in these things. You learn a lesson or you don't.
How's your son doing, Francis? Healing up.
How's my son doing? Missy, do you get what your son did? Or understand what your son stole from mine? Trevor kicked AJ in the knee. You get any of that?
My understanding is that his knee is only dislocated. He'll be fine. No one ever really gets hurt in these things.
My son may never play football again.
I'm sorry about that.
You're sorry. Your son took my chance of a career in football, and you're sorry.
And if Trevor hadn't kicked AJ in the knee, then your boy may have taken my son's life. No bullshit. After AJ punched Trevor in the stomach, he picked up a large rock and was about to
AJ
smash
wouldn't
his
do
head
something
with
like
it.
that.
Were you there?
Were you?
Trevor's been through enough of this shit. Getting beaten up, the name-calling, the bullying. And both of us had to get it from his father before he nearly beat us to death. Trevor for being who he is, and me for being his mother. But this school is supposed to be a safe space.
There aren't any safe spaces. Not out in the real world. Now, I'm real sorry for all your past trouble. I really am. You're only hurting these kids with this safe space shit. They're gonna get out there in the real world, and they're gonna learn how hard and mean it really is.
What am I thinking? How could a person like you even begin to understand how important it is for these kids to have a safe space?
I mean, come on, do you hear yourself?
You don't understand safe spaces because you don't need them. The world bows down to people like you and your son, the popular, privileged people, the jocks and the pretty cheerleaders that group together in school hallways. You prey on the ones who are different, the ones who don't fit in the way you think they should because they're too fat, or too smart, or too black, or too gay, or too nice. So you do whatever you can to make them feel bad about themselves. Does it make you feel good to do that? Does it make you feel better about yourself to tear someone down just to build yourself up? Or do you do it because you see something in them that you don't like? Something that you also see in yourself?
Don't think for a second you know anything about me.
Oh, but I'm getting a pretty good idea.
You don't know.
What did AJ tell you about yesterday?
What did AJ tell me? See, why do you care what AJ told me when it's your son? Everyone knows what your son is.
My son identifies as gay. So what? Does that justify him being beaten and almost killed?
He tried to make a pass at my son. And AJ's all boy. He doesn't go for any of that queer shit. He did what any self-respecting man would do. He punched him and he told him to back off. So yes, I'd say it is justified.
I think I understand now.
What?
You're afraid.
You think I'm afraid? I ain't afraid of a damn thing in this world. When I was 8, I went up against a group of kids who were bigger and tougher and meaner than me, and I fought them off on my own. I was on the wrestling teams and the football teams. I went up against the biggest, most badass athletes you'd never want to meet. I volunteered for the war in Iraq, and it would have taken me too if it wasn't for my damn asthma. No, I grabbed life by the horns, and I dare it to stop me. So no, if anyone's frightened, it's you. I've wasted quite enough time here.
I've had you figured out the moment you walk through that door. With your mucho macho, I exhale testosterone, all male, no nonsense, pseudo-confident act. You are afraid. You're afraid of what really happened, and I think that you know the story AJ told you is not the same one Trevor told me.
And what did Trevor tell you?
He told me that AJ is the one that tried to make a pass at him.
Bullshit.
He said he was sorry for the way that he always made fun of him, and then Trevor told AJ that he really liked him. Like as in like.
That's a damn
But
lie!
then Trevor says AJ's friend showed up, and AJ got scared because he was talking to him alone, and that's why he punched him, to make his friends think that he hated him. But I guess that wasn't enough, because when Trevor saw AJ with that large rock in his hands, he knew he had to defend himself, because if he didn't, so he did what he had to do. He was on the ground, AJ was standing, he kicked, the rock fell, and he ran. He ran to a safe space, and that's how he said it. He ran to a safe space.
He's lying.
I know my son, Mr. Douglas. I know when he lies, and I know when he tells the truth.
Oh, you know your son,
Yes,
huh?
I know my son.
Well, I know he's a goddamn liar! And if I'd have been there, I would have smashed his head in myself! Oh!
Don't get up. Do not ever speak of my son in that way again. What is it that makes you think you can say something like that? What turns you into such a maladjusted and bitter...
Enough! That's enough.
No. I want to know. I need to know. What is it? Some secret? Something you swore you'd never tell anybody about?
There's no secret. There's nothing. So why do you keep digging?
Does it hurt, Francis? Is the pain too much for you? Good. Good. Even if it's 1/8 of the pain, people like you have caused for me and my son, then I'm glad. I'm glad you're hurting. I hope it sticks in your throat, and I hope you choke on that pain until it kills you.
I saw it. I saw it. And I couldn't do anything about it. They say that certain traits and characteristics, they skip a generation in a family line. Like you have a grandfather, and he's a real gifted football player, natural, inborn talent. You know, the son, not so much, but the grandson, he'll have that gift. He'll have that trait. That's what I was afraid of. Because it happens with both good and bad traits. Both good and bad. I told him it was wrong to be that way. I told him people like that were weak, and they were liars, who pretended to be what they weren't. There shouldn't be a place for them in this goddamn country. I told him they deserved every beating they got, every stomp of it. I made certain he knew.
You taught him well.
What kind of life is he gonna have? My son is... God help me.
God help you? God help you. What you should be afraid of isn't whether or not AJ may or may not have a crush on a boy. It's the fact that he's ashamed of who he may be. And that shame turned into violence. And that, Francis, falls on you. You taught him how to hate himself, and how to be afraid of anyone else like him.
My father never taught me anything. Not only was he was cold, distant. I couldn't even get close to him. He would just push me away. But the things I learned about being a man, I learned from my friends and their fathers. This thing, it's happening to him now. He can change. He has to change.
We are who we are. Just because you don't agree with who a person is doesn't mean that they should change because you have a problem with how they live their life.
AJ was born left-handed. Left-handed in a right-handed world, and we decided we were going to fix that. And we did. We trained him to use his right hand. And we saved him from a lifetime of struggle. It's like that. He can be changed. He has to change. There's no place in this world for people like him.
We make the world what it is. It doesn't make it so.
Well, that's a very profound statement, Counselor. But wishing the world were different doesn't make it so. The world's not going to change for you, or for them, or for us. We've only got two choices. Conform or die.
Well, I'm afraid Dr. Kilpatrick may have forgotten about us. But I think that we've covered all that needs to be covered and said all that needs to be said.
Do-it-yourself parent-principal meeting. I gotta say, you got one hell of a right hook.
Guess I should apologize for that. But I won't. That was a terrible thing you said. Horrible.
I know. I'm sorry.
If you need an attorney, I can recommend a few
No
good ones.
attorneys, no nothing. I'm not like one of those faggots you can't. I'm okay. Really, I'm okay.
I want to let you know that the only way I grew as a person was by challenging myself every day about what I knew and why. There are safe spaces, Coach Douglas. As parents, it's our responsibility to make sure our kids find them.
The world is all around us. There's no place for any of us to hide. Safe spaces, they just don't exist. You're born or die. No other choice.